Wow, just no one saw this coming. Ukraine is hinting us with the most unconventional way to win in this war. And once you hear it, you'll be like, wow, this just makes so much perfect sense. At least this is how I personally reacted to this. And at the same time, Ukrainians slowly but surely prepare for the most important battle in the south. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's go straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. So, in one of Russia's small cities, they installed a monument to Intercontinental Ballistic Missile called Sarmat. And in the back part of this monument, there is this phrase, which says, "After us, there is silence." For the opening of this monument, they invited the local authorities, military representatives, and even some priests. Most likely so they can baptize this missile so it doesn't fall right after the launch. But who knows? So just please let me know in the comments, do your countries or cities, do you have monuments not for like famous people or events, but for intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of destroying millions of lives? Because I'm just simply curious if this is just the thing about the Russian authorities and their complexes. But I mean, okay. Let's move on to the main topic of the video, this most genius and most unconventional way of Ukrainians to try and win in this war and how this will affect the future of the country. Then we'll move to the east of Ukraine and talk about the unstoppable pressure against Bakhmut, and then we'll finalize everything with just a couple of words about the Western military support to Ukraine. And so yes, this truly genius new tactics of Ukraine to win in this war is by creating the instability within Putin's inner circle, and this is what it means. Less than a month ago, Ukraine did see that this armed mutiny by Wagner, it most certainly affected the Russian authorities and the military commandment. Despite them saying that no, this was not a big deal, we were able to cope with this easily. And so Ukraine decided to take advantage of that event, but they might have been just a little bit too late, because after all, the majority of the world was literally stunned with this first ever in 20 plus years challenge for Putin's power. But the next time it happens, I'm almost 100% positive that Ukraine and Russian opposition groups, they'll be much more prepared, and potentially one of the reasons why it is so quiet in regards to this situation right now, it is because Ukraine and Russian opposition groups, they're in the stages of preparations. They just want to make sure to strike at the right place at the right time to inflict maximum damage to Putin's regime. And once this inner instability is achieved, this is when Ukraine will apply maximum pressure along the front lines. Either it will happen in the south, when Ukrainians will try to endanger Crimea to force Putin to talk about peace on Ukraine's terms, or Ukrainians will attack in the east, pressuring against Bakhmut and trying to recapture this most significant city for Russian propaganda. Because after all, Putin already spent so much time, effort, and resources trying to brainwash people of the significance of this city. That is why losing this will be completely unacceptable for him, especially among the regular Russian people. So just please let me know in the comments if you think at least any of this makes at least some kind of sense, and whether you agree with this or not, and if you think that this scenario is quite possible, and if you want to see it right in front of your eyes, can you please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I will make sure to report on this 100%. You can also follow my second channel, The Russian Dude Clips, where I post under 1 minute summaries every single day. The link is down below. And so yes, coming back to the south, Ukrainians do continue to push extremely hard, looking for the weak spots of Russians and exploiting them, bringing the most important battle for the south one day closer at a time. So let's talk about this right now really quick, before moving to the east of Ukraine and talking about the Ukrainian progress near Bakhmut, and then we'll finalize the things with the Western military support. And so yes, in this very first video, we can see Ukrainian soldiers trying to destroy and breach the defenses of Russians from Petykhatki going to Zherebyanki to expand the liberation to the south of this area. The full video is almost 3 minutes long, and you can just see how much Ukrainians are struggling trying to advance, because there are literally Russian artillery shells landing left and right several meters away from them. The video unfortunately is very influential, and the full version is on my Patreon, the link is down below, still 1 week of free access. As we go a little bit more to the south, this small settlement called Petrivka, Ukrainians were able to destroy a Russian self-propelled artillery system called Hyacinth S. And then right here is yet another video allegedly somewhere from the southern front lines, where Ukrainians just by using a simple drone are able to destroy a multi-million-dollar Russian tank. And well, guess what? Russians did have their response, which is, unfortunately as always, just attacking residential areas, such as for example right here, as you can see, are the consequences of attacking Orikhiv. And as we refer to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, the main combat activities in the south are happening right now, in between the border between Zaporozhye and Donetsk, and also in the western Zaporozhye region. Then we have this statement by Ivan Fedorov, the mayor of Melitopol, that approximately 200 Russian soldiers and their commanders have been eliminated as a result of a single strike of Ukrainians against their positions in Tokmak. And as a result of all these hostilities, Ukrainians in the last 24 hours were able to liberate a little bit more land to the north of Priyutne. And now to probably the most important thing from the south. It is that Russian propagandists, they started claiming that potentially Russian defenses in the south are not as effective as the Ministry of Defense of Russia claims. And the main reason for this, according to the propagandists, are the people. There are some people on the front lines who have been there since October of last year and are already exhausted without being rotating at all. And then there are some other people approximately next to the second line of defenses and below who has not experienced any combat activities since the beginning of this war. So as soon as Ukrainians will start pushing, they'll be completely unknowledgeable. They will simply don't know what to do. And so, as you can see, you have the first line of defense, which contains people who are already morally and physically exhausted, and then the second line of defense and below contains of people who will simply not be able to resist any combat activities, and they will not be able to do anything. Most likely as soon as it happens, they will simply start panicking and maybe even running. For this reason, it is my personal assumption that the most important battle for the South will be happening in the very near future, and it might be as swift and rapid as we saw in the past. Because as of right now, Ukrainians are just probing the Russian defenses. They already find some weak spots and they try to exploit on their own success, but still there was not a single major breakthrough. Because as soon as it happens with the help of the Western weapons and also potentially this instability within Putin's inner circle we talked about recently, this is when Ukrainians might apply such a massive pressure in the south that the defenses of Russians will simply fall apart. And without a doubt, this will most likely be the most important battle for the south. And I saw some people in the comments asking for an update for Zaporozhye nuclear power plant and Kakhovka Dam incident, so let me give you just a couple of words about this before we move to the east. So as you can see from this first satellite image, this is how the situation around Zaporozhye nuclear power plant in regards with water looks at this very moment. There is still enough water and the situation is relatively stable, and as we move down to Kakhovka water reservoir, here are the pictures of some of its parts. In some places the water is almost completely gone and people are able to walk there, while on the others there is completely no water at all. It looks like a desert. Right, and now as promised, let's talk about the situation in the east, the continuous pressure of Ukrainians against Bakhmut, and then we'll finalize everything with the Western military support to Ukraine and the main takeaways of the video. But so far, if you like this style of daily updating, can you please subscribe to my channel? Only takes one click. And so yes, the very first video comes to us from the capital of Ukraine, Kiev, where as a result of intercepting Russian missile, a residential building has been severely damaged. Next we have a picture from Sumy, where yet another Russian drone has been intercepted. It fell in residential area and damaged it as well. And just overall, in the last 24 hours, Ukrainians were able to intercept all 20 Shahed drones and 2 Caliber missiles launched by Russians. Next, we once again refer to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, which claims that there are continuous combat activities along Kupiansk-Svatove front line, and as you can see from this map, Russians were able to capture a little bit more land. And then there is a little bit more skirmishes next to Kreminna area. And from the Ukrainian side, they reported destroying a large assault group of Russians along with their tanks next to Nahirnya. Then here we have another video of one of the most modern battle tanks of Russia, T-90M, being once again destroyed with just 2 simple drones. And believe it or not, here is yet another video of Ukrainians using Javelin and destroying another tank of Russians. All of these videos full of their versions are down on my Patreon. And just overall, in the last 24 hours, Ukrainians were able to destroy 1 Russian control center, 16 of their artillery systems and 2 electronic warfare systems. And ultimately, the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine confirmed that Ukrainians do advance to the south of Bakhmut, specifically next to Klishivka, as you can see, which is confirmed by this map. Right, and now let's quickly go over the Western military support to Ukraine and then the main conclusion of the day. And first of all, right here we have a video of Ukrainians already using Leopard 2 tanks from Sweden on the territory of Ukraine. Then we have Germany, which is pledging 6 more anti-aircraft tanks Gepard, 5 more high-mobility vehicles, 1 bridge builder called Bieber, no, not Justin, just Bieber, and then several thousands of rounds of ammunition. Next we have a very interesting statement from the general of Ukrainian army Alexander Tarnavsky, who is saying that the cluster munition promised by the US is already in Ukraine. According to him, even though this munition has not been used yet, Ukrainians will try to, however much you want to believe it, they will try to use it carefully, because it is still prohibited to use cluster munition in densely populated areas. And speaking about the response by Russians, for example, according to the Minister of Foreign Affairs Sergei Lavrov, he said that because Ukrainian pilots will be training to use F-16 planes, which according to him are capable of carrying nuclear missiles, this already means that there is a nuclear escalation in the world, and Russia will have to respond accordingly, especially because then Ukraine also received this cluster munition, so now Russia has its hands untied to also use prohibited weapons. Basically yet another pointless and fake threat by Russian authorities. And finally, the Russian military budget increased by 9% to approximately $86 billion, while Ukrainian military budget increased by 640% all the way to $44 billion. And so yes, what do we have right now? Well, Ukrainians are hinting us with their genius plan of creating the instability within Putin's regime and then taking advantage of this and bringing the most important battle in the south one day closer at a time. Then we have continuous pressure of Ukrainians against Bakhmut, which creates another problems for Russian soldiers in this area, continuous support of the Western countries to Ukraine, while Russia is just slowly but surely losing all of its friends and losing all the respect around the world. In this case, pretty much as you can see, a lot of factors are pointing in the direction of Ukrainian victory, and hopefully it will happen sooner rather than later. And if you don't want to miss any of these important, extremely important events that are happening in the very near future, can you please once again subscribe to my channel? Only takes one click. The absolutely best way to support my work is through my Patreon. You can also become my channel member or simply use a PayPal link. Everything can be found to the right and down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи. Beware there are scammers in the comments. Please follow me on Instagram and see you tomorrow.